Your morning coffee might be silently draining the strength from your skeleton, and if you're over 50, this matters more than you think. Bone loss doesn't ache. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder. It just happens, quietly, until one day you're standing in an X-ray room hearing the word osteoporosis for the first time. But there's a simple fix, one mineral added directly to your cup that can flip this entire process in your favor. Let's get into the science. To understand why this mineral matters, we first need to understand what's actually happening when caffeine moves through your body. Your bones are not the static, dead-looking structures they appear to be on an X-ray. They are living tissue, constantly being broken down and rebuilt in a process called bone remodeling. Specialized cells called osteoclasts dissolve small amounts of old bone, and other cells called osteoblasts come in behind them and lay down new bone. In a healthy young adult, these two processes stay roughly balanced. But somewhere around your mid-30s, the balance starts tilting. Breakdown edges ahead of rebuilding, just slightly, year after year. By the time you reach your 60s, that slow tilt can add up to a meaningful loss of bone density. Now, where does coffee fit into this? Multiple studies going back decades, including research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, have shown that caffeine has a measurable effect on how your kidneys handle calcium. When caffeine is metabolized, it triggers a temporary increase in how much calcium your kidneys filter out into urine. Researchers call this caffeine-induced calciuria. In simple terms, your body pulls slightly more calcium out of your bloodstream and flushes it out, rather than keeping it in circulation where it can eventually be used to maintain bone strength. Here's the part that surprises most people. This isn't a dramatic effect. One cup of coffee doesn't crack your bones like a car battery draining acid. The loss per cup is small. But small effects, repeated every single morning for 20, 30, 40 years, are exactly how chronic conditions like osteoporosis quietly build. It's not one storm that erodes a coastline. It's thousands of ordinary waves. And this is especially relevant if you're postmenopausal. Estrogen plays a major protective role in slowing bone breakdown, and once estrogen levels drop, women become significantly more vulnerable to any additional calcium loss, including the kind triggered by caffeine. Studies have found that in postmenopausal women who already have low calcium intake, habitual coffee consumption is associated with a measurably faster rate of bone density decline compared to those who don't drink coffee at all. So no, coffee is not bad in some sweeping, dramatic sense. But if you're already fighting an uphill battle against age-related bone loss, your coffee habit could be quietly working against you rather than staying neutral. The question is, what do you do about it? Quitting coffee is one option, but let's be honest, for most people that's not realistic, and honestly, it's not even necessary. There's a smarter solution. And it starts with a mineral most people have never even heard of. That mineral is boron. You won't find boron talked about nearly as much as calcium, vitamin D, or magnesium, but researchers who study bone metabolism have known about its importance for decades. Boron is what's called a trace mineral. Your body needs only a tiny amount of it, but that tiny amount plays an outsized role in how your bones actually use the calcium you give them. Here's the key insight. Taking calcium alone is not enough. Calcium is like bringing bricks to a construction site, but bricks alone don't build a house. You need the right supporting materials to hold everything together, direct the calcium to where it's needed, and prevent it from being wasted. Boron is one of those supporting materials. Research conducted by the USDA's Grand Forks Human Nutrition Research Center, led by nutrition scientist Dr. Forrest Nielsen, found that boron supplementation reduced urinary excretion of both calcium and magnesium. the two minerals most essential for bone strength. In other words, boron helps your body hold on to the calcium it already has, rather than losing it through urine the way caffeine encourages. But boron does something even more interesting. It appears to extend the biological half-life of both vitamin D and estrogen in the bloodstream. Think of vitamin D as the delivery driver that escorts calcium from your gut into your bones. If that delivery driver's shift ends too early, calcium never makes it to where it needs to go. Boron effectively keeps that driver on the clock longer, giving your body more time to actually use the vitamin D you already have, instead of needing more of it. For women navigating menopause, this matters even more, because boron's effect on extending estrogen's activity may help slow the very hormonal shift that accelerates bone loss in the first place. That's not a claim that boron replaces hormone therapy. It doesn't. But it may meaningfully support the body's existing hormonal environment during a stage of life when bone protection becomes critical. This is why researchers increasingly view boron not as a standalone treatment, but as a cofactor, a mineral that makes your existing calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D actually work harder for you. And the best part? You almost certainly already know what boron tastes like, because you've been eating it your whole life without realizing it. Raisins, prunes, dried apricots, almonds, avocados. These foods are naturally rich in boron, but most people don't eat nearly enough of these foods daily to reach the levels studied for bone benefit, which is why so many longevity-focused nutritionists now recommend a small targeted boron supplement, often in the form of boron citrate or sodium borate, added directly into your morning coffee. You might be wondering, why coffee specifically? Why not just take it as a standalone pill with breakfast? There are actually a few compelling reasons. First, boron in these low therapeutic doses, typically 3 to 6 milligrams each, is virtually tasteless when dissolved in liquid, unlike magnesium, which can taste chalky or bitter, or zinc, which can leave a metallic aftertaste. Boron blends into coffee without altering the flavor at all. That means there's no barrier to consistency, and consistency is everything when it comes to mineral supplementation. A mineral that works brilliantly in a lab study does nothing for you if you forget to take it 3 days out of 7. Second, because boron is water-soluble in its ionic form, it absorbs quickly through the digestive tract, often more efficiently than it would in a dense multivitamin tablet packed with dozens of other competing nutrients. When you isolate it and dissolve it directly into a liquid you're already drinking, you're giving your body a clean, fast-absorbing dose without digestive competition. And third, and this is the part I find most compelling, there's a kind of poetic correction happening here. The very beverage that mildly increases your calcium loss becomes the delivery vehicle for the mineral that helps your body retain that calcium in the first place. You're not avoiding your coffee ritual, you're upgrading it. Instead of your morning cup being neutral to negative for your bones, it becomes an active part of your bone protection strategy. That's the shift I want you to walk away with today. Coffee isn't the enemy. Uninformed coffee drinking is the missed opportunity. Let's zoom out, because the real value of this isn't about tomorrow morning's cup. It's about what 10, 20, 30 years of this small habit adds up to. Bone density loss is a compounding problem. Lose 0.5% more density per year than you should, and that seems irrelevant in year 1. But stretch that across 3 decades, and the difference between someone who addressed it early and someone who didn't can be the difference between walking confidently at 80 and living with a hip fracture that never fully recovers. According to data published by the National Osteoporosis Foundation, 1 in 2 women and up to 1 in 4 men over 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis in their remaining lifetime. That is not a small statistic. That is a coin flip for half the women watching this video right now. Small daily interventions are how you change which side of that coin flip you land on. And boron's benefits don't stop at bone density. Several clinical studies have found associations between adequate boron intake and reduced markers of inflammation, including C-reactive protein, which matters because chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be a contributing factor in joint degradation and osteoarthritis. Some research has also pointed to cognitive benefits, with boron-deficient diets and controlled studies being linked to poorer performance on tasks involving attention and short-term memory, possibly due to boron's role in brain electrical activity. None of this means boron is a miracle mineral that fixes everything. It isn't. But it means that this one small addition to your coffee routine sits at an intersection of multiple systems in your body that all become more fragile with age, bones, joints, and even cognitive sharpness. Here's what I want you to take from this video. Most people approach aging reactively. They wait for a diagnosis, a fracture, a scan that shows a problem, and only then do they start making changes. But the entire field of longevity science has shifted its thinking over the past 2 decades. The goal isn't to treat decline once it's already visible. It's to intervene early, quietly, consistently, in the small daily moments that most people overlook entirely. Your morning coffee is one of those moments. You're already going to drink it. The ritual is already built into your day. The only question is whether that ritual works for your skeleton or quietly against it. Adding a small, well-researched dose of ionic boron doesn't require you to change your diet, start a new supplement regimen with 5 different pills, or give up the beverage you genuinely enjoy. It requires one small addition to something you were going to do anyway. Before you start, I do want to be responsible here. Boron is safe at low doses studied in research, generally in the 3 to 20 milligram range, but more is not better. High doses can be harmful, so talk to your doctor before adding any supplement, especially if you have kidney issues or are on other medications. This video is educational, not a replacement for personalized medical advice. If you found this useful, do me a favor and subscribe, because I'm covering exactly this kind of science-backed, practical longevity strategy every single week. The small interventions that actually move the needle, without the hype and without the miracle cure nonsense that floods this space. Bone health isn't glamorous. Nobody posts about it on social media. But it might be the single most important factor in whether you're independent, mobile, and pain-free in your 70s and 80s or not. Your bones are listening to everything you do today. Make sure what you're doing is actually helping them. I'll see you in the next one.